Good morning. This is Kara Mortimer coming to you from Portland, Oregon, and I've decided to kind of map out some of the ways that I'm comparing and contrasting the change theories from Fuller, Cotter and Cohen, and Herdrich. So I thought I'd put it down on paper, and hopefully I can figure out how to make this work in video form. So I'm starting out with Fullen, and Fullen laid out what looks like a fairly simple plan with initiation, implementation, institutionalization. And then it's part of what he pointed out is that these phases were not an explicit cycle like I had just drawn on the paper, but there may be movement back and forth between the phases depending on what the organization is encountering at the time during their change process. Fullen also described a lean startup model to account for times when things are changing so rapidly that a full planning initiation phase of 3 years or so in an organization would be more harmful. And technology was used as an example of that. So that there's a quick visioning, a steering, and an acceleration. And I've drawn that kind of off to here because there may be some time, but as we begin an initiation process that we realize, whoop, this needs a lean startup. And there are other times that it may go into some sort of full cycle. Cotter and Cohen, on the other hand, have 8 stages that they found in successful change. And several of those stages align very well with the initiation stage for Fullen. They're precursors or they're active parts of that cycle. So there's creating the sense of urgency, which can build into this vision team, but they have as sense of urgency, guiding and building a team, creating vision, identifying strategies, communicating that vision. Removing obstacles and getting early wins fit more with some of the work that's identified in implementation for Fullen. Keep going fits well here. It's also this great bridge between implementation and institutionalization, where Cotter's phases identify developing a new culture. The thing that I thought was interesting here is that the ending of their phases doesn't provide as much for that cyclical nature of continuous improvement that you would see in the orange cycle, the Fullen cycle. And then if we're going to look at Herdrich and impose some of that model for continuous improvement onto what I've just drawn, here we start with where are we, that kind of what's going on leads to a needs assessment, helps us create a focus, time to do some planning and professional development to support participants in the change. Moving on to the actual implementation of the change and having a clear timeline and accountability. Moving into evaluation, how are things going? What do we know? And that information could then lead on to some other kind of needs assessment, because we have more data. We may realize that we have something else going on, or it may lead back to tweaking the focus a little bit so that we can continue on with that cycle. With all this mumbled stuff, all of this jumble, I can also overlay some of the things that we learned from Bowman and Deal. So there's this interesting thing. I'm going to put this develop a new culture, which is what I have at the end, is where we can align, use the HR frame, no, sorry, use a structural frame to align structures to the new culture. We can get a group of folks to work on culture together, and we can mourn the past, and we can celebrate the new heroes of all of this change that has occurred. And if we think about kind of in the smaller steps then, and how do we think about the 4 mental models or frames that might fit into some of this work. We can add some detail here under sense of urgency, where it might become important to involve people, to get input, to network and find the key players, and to tell a story. And one thing that was missing, I thought, from the work that we had in our book was the importance of using data to do all of those things above. So getting people involved by showing them data, getting people involved in finding key players by using data, and so on. We can create a vision and strategy and then use multiple frames to help us do that. When we're instituting change, building an implementation plan, create team building activities, get key people, those are the nodes and super nodes that we read about, onto the team, and create some sort of commanding officer who can lead that work, and people who will want a commanding officer that people will want to follow. Some examples in removing obstacles might be to discard outdated structures and to provide training and resources. That training and resources piece fits very well with Herdrick's model around professional development. There are several aspects for me to remember as an initiator and leader of change as I look through all of this, as I laid out on my poster. One is that I would like to continue to be mindful of my own mental models that I come with when I'm thinking about change. And I need to be mindful then and think about the frames that may guide the thinking of others. That will also help me understand their need. I need to remember that all of this change takes time. There's a lot of pieces that go into it, and I don't think I was thoughtful prior to this class about all of the different pieces that I need to pull together. And probably it'd be important to keep an old adage in mind, an old proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So for me, that's a good way to remind myself to involve others, communicate and plan with others, and seek out multiple perspectives. Thank you.